My God! The jacket works with a suit and tie! I guess technically I'm not wearing a suit, I'm just wearing a shirt and a tie! But the jacket, ladies and gentlemen! The jacket! Yeah, okay. Hi everyone, how you doing? Tekking101 back again. This will be One Piece chapter 1055. But before we get to the review, there's actually a lot of, like, preliminary stuff we need to cover, okay? So, first and foremost, One Piece Film Red is going to be coming out in Japan next Friday, August 6th. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of press and a lot of hype for it in this chapter, okay? The cover page is this epic spread. It's like a poster that you could probably take out of the magazine and put up on the walls. Remember you used to get those out of magazines here in the States? Sometimes you'd open up a magazine and you could like fold out a poster, but you'd have to like rip the staples out in order to get it on your wall. They were a pain in the ass, but this thing looks cool, all right? You got Luffy, you got Shanks there, you got Uta singing a song in the middle. You also have a one-page sort of like pre-chapter to One Piece Film Red called New Age, which features Uta. And Uta, by the way, may very well appear in this chapter, so let me just address that really quickly. I brought it up last week that, like, I was pretty sure Uta was going to, like, be canon. I don't think that, like, Oda would have signed off on Uta's existence for Film Red to just make her a non-canon character. Like, the people went up to Shanks, they went up to Oda. Oda is Shanks. They went up to Oda and they were like, hey, Oda-sensei, we want to do this movie where the main character of the movie is Shanks' daughter. And I don't think Oda would have just been like, yeah, sure, whatever, it's not like she's gonna be canon. That's a very important thing, and I actually like to think that Oda himself, like, came up with the concept to make Shanks' daughter the main character of Film Red. So I am, like, 95% sure that Uta's canon. Also, as we've already mentioned, Shanks rarely shows up in this story. So the fact he had, like, a long-lost daughter that was never referenced up until now, that sort of fits, you know? It's not like we know anything about, you know, Shanks really anyway beyond the standard stuff, okay? So anyway, yeah, we got a really cool little, like, chapter page of whatever of Uta. She's just hanging out and resting, and then Den Mushi is calling, and it's like distress signals. It's just like, Uta, help us! Pirates are attacking our town! You're the only one that can save us! You know, now keep in mind, Uta is like an idol. She's like a diva, okay? She's like a singer in the One Piece world, okay? So, I don't know. This would be like, I don't know, like pirates are attacking our town! Billie Eilish, you're the only one that can save us! You know, it's like something like that, I don't know, but that's the level of that. So Uta gets up, and she's like, I must save them, and so she's digging around in her purse for like a pen or something, and then the last panel is she draws this epic, you know, I don't know, musical note, like, she draws a bunch of music on the walls, okay? And then she's like, it's finally completed, my magnum opus, and that's all we get, although there might be something else in the next chapter, who knows, to like continue the story, or this might just be the preliminary up until the movie itself, okay? So I'm going to assume that Uta's gonna have some kind of devil fruit that involves music in some way. That's why I'm also really hoping that Brook has a role in this movie in some way. Like, he's the Soul King, they're going to a concert on, like, Festival Island or whatever. So I'm hoping, like, at some point you're gonna have, like, Uta and Brook, like, sing a duet or something on stage. Like Brook just jumps on stage and he takes out his guitar and he just starts, like, you know, like, going crazy with it, and Uta's like, okay, there's a, you know, a musical skeleton, there's Soul King back there, all right, nice, and then she just starts singing or something, right? So I'm assuming, yeah, she has a devil fruit that has something to do with music, and she's using that song that she wrote that's called New Age, which is very similar to Brook's hit single New World, you know, for the new world, and then she's gonna use this ability to go save the people that are, like, asking for her help. Okay, that's the basic way I'm going with this here. Okay, so one more thing, a couple more things actually before we get to the chapter. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of stuff to cover here. By the way, this is not related to One Piece, but Black Clover is back this week after its 3-month-long break. So we're really moving into the second half of the year now, so Black Clover's back. So if you're a fan and you didn't know, go check out that chapter. And what was the last thing? Oh yeah, the chicken nuggets. Okay, yeah, so Artor shared this thing on Twitter last night that I thought was really cool, and it's that there's like, I think it's KFC in Japan, it might be some other like, you know, fried chicken company or whatever, but they're doing like a collab with Film Red where there's like chicken nuggets that are like Film Red chicken nuggets. Yeah! You know, we got regular and we got spicy chicken nuggets, and I'm actually making chicken nuggets today. There's chicken that's marinating in my fridge upstairs in buttermilk, and then I'm gonna make this Carolina barbecue sauce. Oh, it's gonna be so good. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. So this is the new main character of One Piece Film Red. The Straw Hats are going to have to fight against the hot and spicy chicken nugget, and it's just like this massive product placement for like KFC. The Colonel appears behind a mountain, and it's just like, Uta, you know, I will destroy your concert with my chicken. You know, it's just like, okay, and then the Straw Hats have to fight Colonel Sanders. You know what? I watched that movie. Don't lie and say you wouldn't watch that movie, okay? All right, I think we covered everything. Uta's canon, chicken nuggets are the main villain in Film Red, Black Clover's returned, little preliminary chapter, little poster. Okay, we're good. All right, here we go. One Piece, chapter 1055 review, titled New Age, which is also the name of Uta's song, so it ties back in. Okay, so, you know what's funny? We cut now to the Flower Capital, where we see everybody partying, all right? So, like, everybody was partying at the Fire Festival, so they completely missed out on the giant war that was happening above them in Onigashima. And now, here we are with Green Bull attacking the island, giant tree monsters stomping around outside of Wano, and everyone's still partying and so drunk they have no idea what's going on. So you know what? It must be nice to be the citizens of Wano. I mean, I guess not, because they were horribly oppressed by Orochi for 20 years and a lot of them died through like dehydration and starvation, but they know how to party is what I'm saying, okay? We actually see a really cute scene of Nami and Otama. Like, Nami's holding Otama's hand, and she's eating, like, a candied apple, and they're walking through the festival, and they're having a fun time. Oh, that's adorable. But now we cut back to the outskirts where Green Bull has ensnared Momonosuke in his dragon form. Because dragon, you know, Momonosuke cannot use his Boro breath, so, you know, he's just grabbing him. And he's like, you know, Yamato, stay away, you know, this isn't a battle for you, you know, you should be going out to sea with the Straw Hats, and you've been chained up your whole life, you know, this is a battle for me and Odin's scabbards, you know? And so I have to say, Momonosuke, that's very brave. I'm sure Odin would have been proud, but, yeah, it's not looking too good. He's like, Yamato, you need to get away. We got this. Bam! And then Aramaki just slams him into the ground, and he's like, all right, you son of a gun. You think you can take me? Bam! And so it's very clearly one-sided. Momonosuke's putting up a front, but he's getting the ever-loving shit beat out of him, okay? So, yeah. Then we have Raizo. Okay, Raizo is here, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to save the day here, all right? So he has a brilliant idea, and it doesn't involve summoning a giant amount of water like last time. No, it's actually the exact opposite, okay? So Raizo's there, big brain, and he's like, wait a second. I've played a single Pokemon game before. You know, grass type is defeated by fire. And so it's like, yeah, Raizo, you're on this. Pokemon logic literally applies to everything. Everything. You just can't beat it, okay? So Raizo activates his Maki Maki no Mi, the scroll jutsu, and he's like, Fireball Jutsu! Giant scroll opens up, huge amount of fire erupts. I don't know where he got the fire. I mean, actually, he might have just gotten the fire from the giant burning fire that was Onigashima a while ago. He was so brilliant. He was so, you know, the foreshadowing. You know, he's like, before I extinguish the fire with the water that I stored on Zou, I'm going to absorb some of the fire so I can use it later. That actually might be what happened. Anyway, so he uses his scroll powers and a giant amount of fire, a giant fireball just billows toward Aramaki, and he's just like, wait a second, no, stop, and it hits him head on. It's like, roll that fireball damage, and it explodes, and Aramaki's like, no, you have bested me. not. And so he reveals that that is actually not powerful against him. Like, you can't use fire to defeat him. He brings up how he's an admiral, and that's such an obvious weakness, so he uses a technique called fireproof forest. All right, so he's just like, no, I have been bested, and then just he just like bulks up his bark or whatever he's got, and he just goes to attack Raizo. He's not even fazed by the fire. It doesn't bother him a little bit. I brought this up in the review, not the review, but I brought this up in a video this week where I was like, okay, Sabo fought against Green Bull at Reverie, right? And you would assume because Sabo has the Mera Mera no Mi, he would have a type advantage against Aramaki, right? So maybe that's how they escaped. But then I was thinking about it like, well, you know, like, plants have water in them. Like, that's kind of the whole point of plants, right? They store water. So if a plant or like a tree or something is really, really dried out, you know, and then you light it on fire, yeah, it'll light. But if it's like I live out in the middle of Pennsylvania, okay? Everything's very lush and green and wet out here, okay? So, you know, there's sometimes there's assholes that like smoke a cigarette and they'll throw it onto the side of the highway or whatever. That won't like immediately light the damn forest on fire. When I was out in California, I saw that crap all the time. Like, on the side of highways, there were just like giant burnt patches, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm thinking, well, if Aramaki can control forests and you know, nature with his Mori Mori no Mi, then he might be able to just have all this water in there. The fire might not be all that effective, and as we see here, it isn't. Now, the name of the technique he uses is fireproof forest, so I don't know exactly what he's doing. Maybe he's just adding a lot of hockey to his wood. I don't know. But at any rate, fire, at least normal fire, is not going to work. And that's the fire that Raizo was using. Probably just the fire from Onigashima or some other fire, some other bonfire flame he absorbed and then released. So this isn't something like Akainu using his magma powers. I think if Akainu fought against Aramaki, Akainu would have the edge, because it's not just fire, it's magma at that point, so you're kind of killing any ground to, like, grow off of. Yeah, I know volcanic soil can be pretty, you know, fertile once the lava, you know, cools down and everything, but, like, yeah, actually spewing magma at the forest, that would probably have an effect. But at any rate, Raizo ends up getting stabbed with one of the roots, and he's like, what is this? I don't, and then you see an image of Raizo getting all the nutrients sucked out of him. He's looking really bad. It's looking like he's going to a Halloween party and it's still July, all right? So it's like, oh my god, Raizo, hang on, buddy, hang on! So you have Kawamatsu there and he's like, we're coming to save you, buddy! And he's hacking and slashing through the roots. They all are. You got Denjiro, Nekamamushi, Ino Arashi's there, and Neko is like, all we can do is like weed whack. That's all we're doing here. And it grows back right as soon as you lop off one of the branches and one of the roots. And so it's like, can we even beat this guy? And they're like, well, everybody has a weakness that we just have to find it, okay? So fire wasn't the weakness. I don't know. Let's try ice. You know, it's like, who has ice powers? Yamato? We can't have Yamato help us. Okay, so yeah, who else has ice powers? Just saying, Yamato would be very, very useful right about now. I'm just saying. Anyway, and so this scene actually ends with all of the scabbards, like Denjiro, Kawamatsu, Nekamamushi, everybody getting ensnared by Aramaki's vines and his roots. And they're not getting, like, drained yet, but they can't move, okay? So the battle is like, it's like a war of attrition where they, like, expending all their energy to cut apart, you know, his body, but it keeps growing back and they eventually just get caught. And that's probably how Aramaki fights most of the time. Like, whenever he fights against somebody that's pretty strong, it's just like, I'm just gonna war of attrition them, you know, keep throwing more and more vines and trees and plants at them. I can do this all day. I'm an admiral. And then just keep throwing them at them, and eventually they're gonna get tired and get ensnared, and then that's when I, like, suck them dry with all their nutrients, okay? So, it's not looking too good for the scabbards right now. They're all ensnared. Raizo is really not looking good, and then Momonosuke's on the ground, okay? So, I don't know what's gonna happen next. But now we cut back to the Flower Capital, where we see, honestly, a little bit more of exciting part of the chapter. We find out some lore. Not just any lore, mind you. We find out about some geography lore. Yeah, okay. So, previously, we had Robin speaking with Tenguyama Hitetsu in the basement of the castle, okay? And it was revealed, of course, that Tenguyama is actually Odin's father, Kozuki Sukiyaki, okay? And he was explaining that, like, oh yes, this was the room with the poneglyph, just the regular poneglyph. That was the one where I was trapped for years and I was imprisoned, but but then I managed to escape, and I took up the identity of Tenguyama, you know, and I could never really reveal myself to Odin because the country was already, well, he was already dead, but then the country was in ruin. I couldn't reveal myself to Momonosuke. I'm like ashamed of it. And he also ends that conversation. Robin sort of interrupts him with the tragic backstory, and he's like, get to the point. And then Sukiyaki's like, oh yes, the point. Pluton is here. And so now we have a moment where we go even deeper into the castle, where Sukiyaki moves a stone inside of the place he was imprisoned. This is probably how he escaped all those years ago, right? And so they begin to descend even further down below the castle, okay? Law is also with them right now, and Robin kind of makes a joke of like, what did you like, you know, like detect our scent and like follow us down here? And Law's like, hey, don't call me like a hyena or something. You were obviously not with the other Straw Hats. And so I'm like, Nico Robin is not with the Straw Hats, and we're in Wano, and there's mysteries lying underneath the castle. I wonder where she went. And so, you know, Law is basically a detective in this arc. You know, he's like solving mysteries. So he's like, he found out where Robin and Sukiyaki were. So now he's following them down as well. By the way, I mean, like, I would always typically ship Frankie with Robin, but, Law and Robin's not a bad pairing either. I'm just saying, okay? I'm detecting vibes here, okay? Anyway, they're walking down this long staircase, and Sukiyaki's like, hey, watch your step. You know, mold is growing all over the stairs. You know, these haven't been used in a very, very long time. They're like stone steps. It's like, you don't want to slip, right? That would suck if, like, Law's walking down the stairs, and he's like, oh, I don't need to worry about it. Oh, shit! And he falls down the steps, and that's how Law is defeated by the stairs, yeah. Anyway, they're descending down, and Sukiyaki says, he's like, well, I never told Kaido and Orochi about this place, the hidden chamber below the hidden chamber, but they have a fishman on their crew, and that was Jack. And because they had Jack, they found out about this place anyway. So now Law and Robin are like, what does being a fishman have to do with anything, like finding about this location? And then he's like, ah, yes, well, let me see. The story begins about 800 years ago. So he like begins to tell the long storied history of Wano, and then immediately Robin and Law are just kind of distracted by like they're walking down this stone corridor, and there's like little crawl spaces like dug into the side of the wall, and light is coming through. And that's a little weird because they're like way underground at this point. So they're like walking by one of these crawl spaces, and they're just like looking at the end of it. It's like, where's that light coming from? So it's like, long ago in an ancient land, the ancient being Aku. Oh, wait, the light? Yeah, I mean, like, you can walk to the end of the crawl space. Sure, yeah, there's like a big glass barrier, like a glass block that's like preventing it from the water getting in, but you can go see what's up. And so they're like, okay. So Robin and Law kind of crawl into this crawl space together. See what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's even a little scene, and I don't understand this completely, but I think what happened was like Robin had to like crawl into the crawl space herself to get to the end, and then Law just used room to like, you know, teleport himself into the end, so he didn't have to actually have to crawl into the thing and like, you know, get dirty or whatever. He can just whoop, and just pop right next to Robin. And so Robin just looks over at him and is just like, no fair, huh? Okay, but anyway, so they look through this glass block, and they actually are stunned to see an entire city that's underwater, okay? And it's like Japanese, like, you know, feudal Japan architecture with like the pagodas and everything, okay? So it's like ancient Wano architecture just underwater, okay? So they're confused by like three things here. It's like, number one, wait a second, we were on dry land, and then we went under the castle, and now it's like we're under the ocean now. It's like, okay, that's weird. Number two, why is there a city down here? Like, number three, how long has it been down here? Number four, where's Pluton? You know, like a lot of like confusing things going on here, okay? So Sukiyaki kind of explains, he's like, well, that is the land of Wano from about 800 years ago. I honestly don't know a lot about it. I don't exactly know a lot about the culture or anything, but that used to be where people lived way back in the day. Now, that water that you see is actually not seawater, it's fresh water, which means that everything is preserved a little bit better. So even though it's been down there for 800 years, like if it was salt water, obviously, like a lot of the, like anything metal would have obviously corroded and got worn away over the years, but I guess fresh water is not as harsh in that regard. So it's like, it's in ruins, but it's not as bad as it could be. And we see like the koi fish swimming, by the way, around the city as well. So that's the koi fish for the waterfall, okay? So Sukiyaki finally explains what the hell is up with Wano's geography, because the weird thing about Wano is that it's on top of like a giant mesa, like in the middle of the ocean, right? Like that's always been weird. We've always thought that that was weird, but it's One Piece, so we just kind of roll with it, you know what I mean? You have to get up a giant waterfall in order to get into the nation, but then there's also like freshwater koi fish that are swimming, and it's like saltwater, and even Sanji brought that up, like that's weird, you know? So we finally figure out how this is working, and Sukiyaki has some handy little diagrams. I imagine he pulls out these little like index cards out of his jacket, and he's like, well, allow me to show you how this worked in Wano, okay? So I've drawn my versions of them, of course, because I like, you know, visual aids for all this stuff, for geography, of course. So this is what Wano looked like 800 years ago. It was a normal island, all right? It was an island that was at sea level. You could just sail up to the island, dock your ship, and arrive. There was no giant waterfall. There was nothing like that. You may also notice that Mount Fuji is huge behind it. So there's like a giant, giant mountain, and that was Mount Fuji, and then the people just built a city around it, much like how the people in Japan built Tokyo, okay? All right. Well, at some point around the Void Century, giant walls were erected all around the island, okay, like this. Now, these were pretty solid structures. They pretty much surrounded the entire island to the point where it was watertight. And whenever it rained, the rainwater just, you know, gathered more and more into the island. It had nowhere to go, and so that's why the former land of Wano, the place that they see under the ocean, that's how it got submerged, okay? So the people that live there were like, oh no, there's these giant walls that are like protecting our nation, but they're also like, you know, causing us to drown because rainwater and like floods and monsoons over the hundreds of years that it's been like this, you know, so it's like, okay, we have to keep moving up the side of Mount Fuji and, you know, build new settlements. I would imagine the further up you go Mount Fuji, you would actually see more and more settlements as they've been abandoned throughout the years, like a timeline of Wano. And then finally, it reached the point where the rainwater was so, you know, it was all the way up to the top of the mesa, the top of the walls, and it started billowing off the side. That's where the waterfalls come from. And then the people had to just begin to restructure the land around Mount Fuji's summit, and then that's where Wano is right now. That's where Curry and Kibi and Udon and Ringo and Hakumai and the flower capital, that's where we're at right now. So, this is why I'm glad, by the way, I waited until after Wano to make a geography is everything, because then we find out shit like this, okay? Alright, so, so first of all, how did the wall get built? That's a question. Like, we just built a giant wall. That's like, look, by the way, and this puts the walls in Attack on Titan to shame. All right, how tall was the wall in Attack on Titan? Like 50 meters or something? Like, whatever. No, these walls are thousands of meters tall, probably, okay? So Mount Fuji, remember, whenever we see Mount Fuji, by the way, I'm so happy that mountain is finally relevant. It was like a big question of like, how is that mountain going to be relevant? Here we are. Anyway, the mountain, when you see it from the flower capital, it's like a very narrow mountain. And the reason because of that is that's just the summit of the mountain. That's like, that's its peak, okay? That's why it's so narrow. But the rest of it is like an actual mountain, you know what I mean? So you also see the little area where Onigashima would later be placed. You know, it's like the little divot in the mountain itself. Just the way the mountain was like shaped was the reason why it's like, okay, mainland Wano and then Onigashima, right? So there's these walls that were constructed somehow over thousands and thousands of kilometers high, probably, in order to reach that point, okay? And then it took another few hundred years for the rainwater to accumulate and gather all the way to the top, and now there's just this giant billowing waterfall, and then they just kind of like, it looks like there was some land that was added to Mount Fuji, like they restructured the land or whatever, make dams or structures or whatever, so they could actually build stuff on top of it. So basically, think of like the current Wano, like it's floating on top top of a giant pool, essentially, okay? And this makes sense why Jack was able to find it, because I guess after the Beast Pirates arrived and Jack was there, Kaido probably ordered him to be like, hey, Jack, dive down into the water outside of Wano. I want to see if there's anything down there. And Jack's like, all right, Kaido. And he dives down, and he's the one that found this. He's like, oh, Kaido, there's a whole city down here. I found a poneglyph. This is crazy, right? Remember, Jack is a fishman, and not a half fishman like Derringer, like I originally assumed. He's just a regular fishman, okay? So, that's the situation, though. That's how it happened. And currently, they are in the castle, descending into they're basically inside of Mount Fuji right now. They're walking down through Mount Fuji to a cave where the road poneglyph is, okay? So that's what they're going for right now. That's like where Sukiyaki is aware where it is, okay? But he himself has very little knowledge on, like, how this happened. He's just passing down the information he heard from the previous shoguns, okay? So he's just like, this information has been passed down from my father and his father before him, but we don't really know how the walls were built. Might have had something to do with a devil fruit. Maybe somebody that had Pika's devil fruit way back in the day, the Ishi no Mi, the stone fruit, maybe built these walls, or maybe it was something else. Who knows? Maybe it had something to do with how the Red Line was built. I don't know. But anyway, they get to the bottom of this cave, and it's sure enough, they find the road poneglyph, or the load poneglyph. It might actually be load poneglyph, because it's lodestar, and lodestar is where you find out about the existence of these things. So it might actually be Lodestar Island, and then the load poneglyph. Either way, it makes sense. Like, if you call it a load poneglyph, that makes sense, because it's like a lodestar is like, okay, this is like a guide to where you're going. Road poneglyph makes sense, because it's like a road to where you're going, so either or. Anyway, Robin sees this, and she doesn't remark at, like, the location of what it says, but she kind of looks at it, and she's like, okay, so this is the third one, so now all we need is one more load poneglyph, and then we can find Laughtail. We can go to Laughtail, okay? So the end is in sight. Sukiyaki now mentions that we are at the foot of Mount Fuji in this chamber. Purportedly, Pluton is down even further than this. So now you're not even getting into the mountain anymore. Now going down any further would be like the actual island itself, like the original island that was at sea level. Below that is Pluton, I guess is what he implies. However, he says, I have no idea how to gain access to that. This is just a rumor that if you go down even further than this, you will find Pluton. Also, there's a problem. In order to activate Pluton, the walls around Wano literally have to come down. So the idea of opening up Wano that everybody's been talking about throughout this entire arc, that is a very literal thing, as well as being metaphorical of, like, you know, being an isolated nation, just in terms of trade and everything. No, it is quite literally the giant walls of Wano will come down, which will result in a massive flood, because all of the seawater that's trapped in there will just like empty out into the sea. Wano, as we know it, might very well collapse off the side of Mount Fuji if that were to happen, right? Because the island is kind of on top of the mountain, but it's sort of precarious right now, sort of floating. So if they just, like, all the water just empties out, it's going to be like, it might destroy, like a massive landslide might occur, you know what I mean? So Sukiyaki brings up, like, that's not good, but that's what I've heard, okay? So it's obviously a very dangerous weapon. However, I cannot show you where it is. I can't guide you beyond this point, okay? At this point, Robin asks him, like, well, okay, if activating Pluton and opening up Wano would cause these horrible disasters, why did Odin want to open it so bad? And Sukiyaki's like, I honestly couldn't tell you. All I'm telling you is what I heard from my predecessors. What Odin found on his journey with Roger, I couldn't tell you. He died before I had a chance to ask him, okay? So obviously Odin found out about something, and he was like hell-bent on returning to Wano and opening up the borders, and I think he understood what that meant. So it's like, I have to bring down the walls, basically. Also, this explains, and this was not really a huge plot hole necessarily, but it was something I was always curious about. How did, back when he was on Roger's crew, how did Odin just swing by Wano and then get the road poneglyph and then leave? Because I always assumed the road poneglyph was in the basement of the castle, which it sort of is, but it's really just in this submerged area, right? So honestly, I think Odin would have just, like, arrived at Wano and is like, I'll be right back, and then he just dove into the ocean of Wano, swam all the way down to this cave, just like Jack did. Jack could do it because he was a fishman. Odin could do it because he was a Chad. He just swims swims down to the bottom, and he's just like, oh, okay, I got the poneglyph, okay, and then swim back up. So, you know, Odin did not have to, like, go into town and, like, sneak into the castle and, like, go down the stairs. Like, that's one way he could have went, but he probably just dove into the water, got the poneglyph, came back up, and then got back on Roger's crew and left. Okay, so that's probably how that went there. All right, so, yeah, we see a brief scene of the festival where we see the Heart Pirates and the Kid Pirates laughing, and as Sukiyaki's talking over, it's like, I don't know exactly what he saw in the outside world that led him to this conclusion. One can only guess, okay? Also, we see Killer there enjoying the festival, but he has his mask on, so, I don't know, I guess he has to eat, like, udon noodles or something through his mask. Or Pocky. You know, Killer could eat Pocky. That would be funny. So, we cut back, and the battle is still not doing too well, and Aramaki's still a giant tree, and he's just saying that, like, he's like, you know, I wouldn't have even had to come to this island if you would have just not defeated Kaido. You know, that's just the way it goes. You know, it sucks to be you. Kaido was oppressing everybody, but he was kind of also maintaining the balance. So he was sort of like justifying Kaido's, like, actions and existence here. He's like, yeah, because Kaido was here, that's why the Marines never got involved. But you had to go beat his ass, so now I'm here, and you're all gonna die, essentially, right? There's a moment where Yamato asks for them to summon Luffy and the others, like, hey, let's just call Luffy and Zoro and Jinbei and everybody. They'll show up and they'll be able to beat Aramaki for sure. I don't know about that, but they would certainly help. Anyway, Momonosuke's like, no, I refuse. I will not call for their help. And it's not because of pride. I mean, maybe a little bit because of pride, but not like a Vegeta level of pride. Really what Momonosuke is saying is like, hey, listen, Yamato, you've been chained up your entire life. Now you finally have a chance to be free. And then we have the Straw Hats, who just risked life and limb in this battle of the ages, battle to the death for Kaido and Big Mom. They managed to win. You know, it's like, I have to be able to protect my own damn island. You know what I mean? That's what Momonosuke's saying. He's like, listen, if I can't handle a Marine Admiral barging into my island and attacking my subjects, then who can I protect? I would argue, Momonosuke, you're probably not going to have to deal with Marine Admirals every single week. You know, mostly you might have to deal, like, if you did open up Wano, you might have to deal with, like, other pirates, you know, some, like, you know, bandits or whatever, maybe some low-level Marines. I don't think you're going to be having to fight against, like, Kizaru and Fujitora and Aramaki, like, every day. So I think it would be okay to call for help right now, but you could sort of understand his logic here. He's like, you know, I don't want to have to, you know, ask for help every time. You know, I gotta be the one to depend on. I gotta be the Shogun of Wano. I gotta be the one to force back an invader like, you know, Aramaki here, okay? And so with that, he draws up his confidence, and he's just like, all right, let's try this again. Borrow breath! And he's like coughing. Okay, hold on. I'm good. He's like coughing and he's trying to activate it, and Aramaki's like laughing. He's like, you can't do it. What are you even trying to do? And then finally Momonosuke just like, bah! And then he just releases a giant Boro breath, and it erupts out of his mouth, and it hits Aramaki square in his tree stomach, and it just like, blah! And then Momonosuke, though, he doesn't stop there. He's like rapid fire mode. He's like, he figured out the trick. He's like down, up, left, right, down, up, LR, and he's like just spamming the shit out of that. He's like, Boro breath, boom, Boro breath, boom, 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 and he's just like unloading on fucking Aramaki, and his whole forest is getting burned down. He's like, oh, damn it, what are you, ow? And it was like his face is getting incinerated off, and everybody's like backing up like, what the hell? Yamato's like, wow, he finally figured out how to harness his dragon powers. And then Kawamatsu's in the back, and he's like, yeah, but his aim could definitely do some, look out! His aim could do some work, but he's getting there. He's getting there, all right? So he unloads, like, I don't know how many Boro breaths onto Aramaki, like point blank range, like 1, 2, 3, at least 3 or 4, at least that many, okay? But and even though his body is like on fire and it's on the ground, like, ah, like it looks like he's actually dead, a little plant just pops up next to him, and then another Aramaki emerges. Okay, so it's literally like his one body is like burning apart, and he literally just plants one of his seeds, and then it's not that weird, and then another plant just emerges, and another body just appears. Okay, just grows out of the ground. So I don't know if this is like substitution jutsu, where he like moved his consciousness from like the tree body to a regular body, or if this is literally a power where if you die, you can literally just regrow yourself. In which case, that's a bad thing that he has that power. I'm not saying it's like he's nigh immortal, but like, if that is really what he's doing, like if his one body did die, and it's just like, I will regrow myself, that has a lot of applications. Could he clone himself? Could Aramaki make an army of Aramaki clones? Because it seems to imply he kind of can, you know what I mean? Anyway, so he emerges, goes back into his tree form, he armament hockeys up his arms, and he's like, all right, if that's how you want to play rough dragon, okay, I'm gonna shove this branch right through your mouth all the way out to the back end of your body. I'll just like skewer you like a freaking shish kebab, okay? Let's just do that. And it's like, okay. But right before that happens, right before the battle is about ready to get ready in earnest and like resume, all of a sudden, this giant crack of Conqueror's Haki just roars out from the ocean. And Aramaki just like, I mean, everybody has kind of said it as sort of a meme, but you can't really not see it. He pretty much shits his pants. You know, he does. He's just like, all right, Momonosuke, let's fight. Crack! Oh, what the hell was that? He goes back into his human form and he's like, what the hell's kind of Conqueror's Haki is that? Oh no. That's unmistakable. That is the Conqueror's Haki of the chieftain of the red-haired pirates. Shanks! This can only mean one thing. The One Piece movie Film Red is hitting theaters next week. A lot of people have been saying that, like, because I brought that up, like, how come Shanks is, like, passing by Wano, but he's not actually going to get off of the boat to see Luffy, so why are they even there? And a lot of people were responding, like, well, it's because One Piece Film Red, Matt. And I'm like, oh yeah, good point. You know, we have to have Shanks in the manga to, like, promote the movie. I guess that makes sense. But no, so he just swings by, just emits Conqueror's Haki, refuses to elaborate, and Shanks just leaves, I guess. But no, so, you know, he feels it, and Aramaki knows 100% who it is, okay? We cut back to the sea, where Shanks is standing on the bow of the Red Force, holding Griffin, his mighty saber in his hand, and he looks so pissed. He's got the head vein going, and he's just like, you know, I'm not really gonna call you cowardly or fearful, Mr. Admiral, but attacking these fledgling pirates just after they've changed the new era, you know, are you that afraid of what's to come? You know, so basically what Shanks is saying, allow me to elaborate for you, he's just like, all right, Aramaki, listen up here, okay? They just fought against this huge boss, this boss battle that took multiple stages and took 50 chapters to complete. You're not gonna follow that up with another boss battle, are you? That wouldn't be very fair. Get the hell out of here, okay? So Shanks looks really pissed. All the other members of the red hair crew are like, Shanks, you gotta let us know before you're gonna let off that Conqueror's Haki nuke, okay? All of the new members of the crew are passing out over here. It's like Shanks doesn't give a shit. He's just like, no, this is like emanating. This is what he has to do to, you know, send terror down the spine of a Navy admiral. And they're like not even on the island. They're like on the outskirts, and he's doing this, okay? We've already known Shanks' Conquerors is not something to mess with, but this is like whole new levels of power, okay? Remember, Shanks is the only Yonko that doesn't have a devil fruit. Literally. So, you know, Blackbeard had one, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, they all had devil fruits. Shanks doesn't, which means he put all of his experience points into Conqueror's Haki, damn it. Alright, so yeah, he literally could start a thunderstorm with just his thoughts, essentially, okay? So Aramaki's there, and he's sweating pretty bad, and he's like, oh man, oh, I think it might be diarrhea, oh boy. You know, we see little flashes of Luffy when he was a little kid and he sliced his cheek, you know, that's where Luffy got the scar. And then we see a scene with Oden and Momonosuke. Then we see a scene with Toki and Hiyori. And then we see one more character in like silhouette, and I'm assuming that's Uta, okay? Because there's a theme here that Shanks is like, I guess, thinking about like there's like a parent-child sort of theme here where we see Luffy with Shanks, which, Yeah, I guess you could say Shanks was kind of Luffy's, father figure. I mean, Garp as well, but Garp is his grandfatherly figure, because he's literally his grandfather. Shanks, I guess, is the closest thing Luffy ever had to a dad, because Dragon didn't raise him. Luffy didn't even know what Dragon looked like up until like a couple months ago, you know what I mean, when he saw his face in the paper. So if you want to say Garp is his grandfather, Shanks is basically his adopted dad, or like the closest to anything he's ever had, sure. Then you see Odin and Momonosuke, father and son. And then you see Toki and Hiyori, mother and daughter, okay? And then you see one more character off to the side who kind of has Uta's hair, and I'm assuming that's Uta, okay? So I'm thinking that she is canon, yeah. So Shanks is pissed. Aramaki just throws his hands up and he's like, okay, fine. I guess I'll fight you at some point, but not today. I'm not dealing with it. I'm getting out of here. He's like holding up his pants and he's like, I'm just gonna leave. Stop laughing at me. So, Aramaki had an accident, which, like, okay, you can laugh at him, like, Aramaki pooped his pants. You can laugh at that, but, like, would any of us, like, we would all be dead if we were in that situation. Like, you understand that, right? Like, if any normal human being was the subject of Shanks's mighty godly conqueror's haki, we'd be on the ground either in a coma or dead. Okay, Aramaki got off with just, like, a little bit of a shart, so he's just like, alright, I gotta go change my pants. I'll let you go this time. You're lucky Shanks is here. And he leaves. Okay, that's how he got off. Okay, so whatever. Anyway, we now cut back to the scene at the festival. Momonosuke's crying. Yamato's like, we did it! It's like, I guess we did it. Okay, good job. The festival is in full swing. We see Brook, we see Chopper, Usopp, Frankie, Hiyori's there, Otoko's there. They're all singing and having a good time. And then the last shot of the chapter is Sanji, Zoro, Luffy, and Jinbei, all of the members of the Straw Hats that have pretty prominent observation haki. Usopp's not there, unfortunately, but they're all hanging out on the edge of the Flower Capital, kind of like they were watching the whole fight. They were literally watching, like, Momonosuke use the Boro Breath and all the scabbards, and that made sense. Like, Aramaki stomping around, like, there is no way in hell that, like, Zoro, Sanji especially, who was observation haki specialist, there is no way in hell they did not sense that battle going on, right? So they did, and they were enjoying the festival, and they're like, hey, Zoro, Sanji, there's like a really strong dude over there, and Momo's fighting him. Like, oh, damn. Like, all right, well, let's go over and see if they need our help. And they were just watching the fight, and they're very proud. Like, Zoro's there, and he's just like, man, Momonosuke, I can't believe he did that. And Jinbei's like, oh, I knew he had it in him. And Sanji's like, oh, I guess they didn't need our help after all. And Luffy's like, oh, I guess he just left. Ha, ha, ha. And then the chapter ends with Luffy just smiling, just eating some food, and he's like, a familiar face just popped into my head. That's all. I'm just really happy right now. She. And then we just see the last shot of the chapter as the red hair, well, wait, hold on. Is that the Marine ship or is that the red hair? Yeah, that's the Red Force. Just sailing away from Wano. Okay, and then that's it. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 1055. No break next week. 3 consecutive chapters, and I think that's more for Film Red, if anything, but it's pretty cool. All right, so that's chapter. So I like that. I like the fact that they were watching the battle, and they would have jumped in, obviously, if it was really looking dire, like if like Momonosuke was about to die, they were going to jump in, but Luffy knows more than anybody, like, okay, yeah, Momonosuke, he is the shogun. He does have to protect his country. It is an admiral, so if it gets really hairy, I guess we can show up and, fight as well. But let's just hang back for a second here. Let's just see where this goes. They might actually win, and Shanks is the one that actually had to end the fight, but still. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious, and I mean, like, Green Bull even said it. He's like, I would not have come here if Kaido was still here, right? So the idea is, like, yeah, admirals are really powerful, but, like, one admiral versus one Yonko, like, I mean, I guess it depends on the Yonko, and I guess it depends on the admiral in question, but I'm just gonna say, like, it's not gonna be an easy fight either way. Alright, so if it's Aramaki up against Kaido, we've seen Kaido, I mean, he has the Boro Breath and he's mastered it, and then Aramaki was actually kind of damaged by that. So I don't know, I might be given, I mean, if it's one-on-one, Kaido wins, right? And the battle between Luffy and Kaido, that was not one-on-one. There was like 30 people that fought against Kaido leading up to Luffy fighting him, right? But anyway, my point is, like, I would probably bet on Kaido fighting against Aramaki, okay? Maybe Akainu fighting against Kaido, I don't know. But, like, the idea is, like, Aramaki doesn't want to deal with this shit. He's like, and by the way, he wasn't even supposed to be at Wano to begin with. This was just him trying to, like, impress Akainu. So he was like, I'm heading to Wano. And he's like, all right. But he's like, you're not supposed to be there. I was like, I don't mind. I don't care. I'll be right back. I'm going to fly over with a flower. I'll be okay. And it just like, yeah, I was kind of talking really fast there. You know, Aramaki was sort of coming out like Boomhauer from King of the Hill there for a little bit. He's like, yeah, I'll tell you what, Akainu. I'll tell you what, man. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to get Straw Luffy's out, bring it right back, man. I'll just bring it over here, man. I was like, that should be Aramaki's voice. I'm going to debate on that. I'm trying to decide what Aramaki's voice should be. Boomhauer might not be a bad idea. I mean, why not, right? It just makes about as much sense as anything else. But anyway, that's the chapter. I have a lot of stuff to cover this coming week. We're going to be talking about, like, the geography of Wano. I still don't want to make a video dedicated about it yet, but I do want to talk about, like, that hidden city underneath it, because that's interesting. How is Pluton going to be awakened? Because Robin and Law and Sukiyaki, they're still down there. I don't think they came back up from the cave, okay? They're down there. Robin and Law might be like, they have Law with them now. Law literally has the ability to be like, room. Can Law sense what's in his room? Can he use it like X-ray vision or like radar or sonar? I imagine he might be able to. He might at least be able to like, yeah, there's a giant ass cave like way further down than here. I can just grabs Robin and just like shambles and just like Sukiyaki's like, okay, have fun. Like Law's with that might actually be the reason Law went with them, so they could just teleport down into like the subterranean chamber. We might see Pluton next chapter, guys. And then I think after the next chapter, there will be a break. So how crazy would that be? 3 chapters in a row, and the last one is, you know, the Pluton, like the big reveal, and then like a 2-week break. And it's like, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, that's the chapter. Hope you all enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Go pick up some chicken nuggets if you live in Japan for One Piece Film Red. This will be Tekking and Tekking's Jacket. Signing out. Later, everyone.